Welcome to episode 181 of the Disorganized Wizards Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined as always by Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Good to be here.
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournaments, stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Do we have to start adding to the intro now that one of the things we do to help you get better at Magic is all these damn events we've been running lately?
Maybe, we're coming up on 4 years this summer. It might be time that we switch up the intro.
Ooh, an intro revamp. I'm excited.
So reinvent ourselves from the intro.
Do we want it to just be like another description, or do we want to get fancy with it? Like make it a poem, make it like a rap, get a beat under it. Like there's a lot we could do here.
Yeah, we could like work it into a new intro song as well. So it all just kind of blends together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or we could record like an anime style opening as like screenshot, like pictures of us like fade in and out over like some, like J-Rock playing.
Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are endless here.
Exactly. But to kick things off today, our biggest event ever, the DWC Organizational number 4 for Ikoria, happened this past Sunday. And like I said, we were kind of blown away by the response of this one. Our biggest event we had hosted before this weekend was, I think, around 50
40 people, I think.
I think we fired the last Isolational with 50. So that was the most players we had. And then leading into this one, we had 160 players registered for the event and ended up firing with 113, which is... it's a lot.
Yeah, the days leading up to it, because like you said, our last event was, 40, 50 range. The days leading up to it, we kept checking, how many people had registered. And we were at like 60, 65, 70. And we were joking, like, I think it was still below 60 at one point. We're like, oh, wow, we like might actually need an extra round this time. Like, I wonder if like, maybe it crosses 100. And then, 160 people registered before the no-shows got dropped.
Yeah, it was really wild. So before we kick things off and get into it, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who came out and played this weekend, everyone who registered and has checked out our events. It really means a lot to us. We have a ton of fun putting these on and covering them. So thank you, and definitely be on the lookout for more events from us because, if anything, this weekend was very motivational for us.
Oh yeah,
they're super fun. I love casting them. It's thrilling.
I mean, on that note, our next event, DWC Take Our Money series, is back. It's coming May 31st, which is a Sunday. It's going to be at noon Eastern time. And we've doubled the prize pool this time around. We're going to give away $100 for first place. It's winner takes all. First place prize, that's it. And the three of us are going to be battling along in the tournament. And we're going to add some bounty prizes. So if you get paired against one of us in the event and you manage to beat us, we'll have a special prize for you. So stay tuned for that.
That's a big if.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe for you two, I get destroyed in those things. I can't catch a break. I also only kind of play troll decks. So what are you going to do?
All I'm saying is 100% of the Take Our Money events that all three of us competed in, first and second place were 100% us. So we'll just throw that out there.
That's true. That's true. The one that we didn't win, you weren't there, Stelly.
Exactly.
And I believe you lost in the finals, correct, Cam?
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, so mark your calendars, May 31st, noon Eastern, DWC Take Our Money events coming. $100 for first place. It's going to be fun. And you can sign up in the show notes now. The event is up on MTG Melee, so check that out.
Yeah, it's free too. I don't know if we mentioned, obviously, all the Take Our Monies are.
Yep, free event. Come try and take our money. It'll be
inspired actually by a StarCraft dailies that they used to have is where the idea came from.
Yeah, our friend Matt Hemsley, friend of the show, was talking about these. I think he played in a couple, years ago when he was big into StarCraft. I never paid much attention to them because I was too much of a noob at the time. But yeah, sweet tournament concept.
Well, are you implying that you are no longer a noob?
No. I mean, I realize people interpret those sentences that way, but mathematically, that's not an implication.
Okay.
Were you complaining that you were just getting stomped over and over again on Twitch on the Versus series?
Yeah. I mean, I still am. I still haven't figured it out. So I'm like, okay. So there's a term that sometimes people use in Galing called ELO hell, or like maybe MMR hell, where, they think that they're stuck at a lower rating playing against bad people, and because the people they play against are bad and don't react how they should, they respond as if, their opponents were intelligent, but their opponents aren't. So then they lose and they get stuck, at a low MMR. That's not what I'm claiming is going on, but I'm in I feel like I'm in a different version of MMR hell where I can beat every Zerg, or I have a 75% win rate against Zerg at my MMR, which inflates my MMR. But I have a 15% win rate against Terrans with my ranking, which means that they deflate my MMR. So I'm floating in this zone where I can't beat the Terrans and always beat the Zergs and can't get out of it because of that two interplaying factors, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, that's a beating. What do you? I don't know if there's not really a magic equivalent. It's just the deck you pick, right?
Yeah, I guess if there was only 3 decks, which has happened, but
well, there's only one right now.
That's true.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, speaking of decks and speaking of the take our money, if you want to do some research, maybe snipe some of our tech, maybe do a bit of scouting for what we might bring, we have a show every Wednesday at 9 p.m., DWC Versus, where we show off some standard decks and play some matches against each other. A bit more instructional, talking through our lines, discussing how the decks, interact with each other. It's a great time.
I'd like to mention, Cam, that it's not just standard decks, because this Wednesday coming up, we're going to be switching it up and playing a little historic with the release of Historic Anthology 3 this past week and it being announced as an MC format. We're going to change things up, battle some historic decks. It'll be fun for the first time ever. So come tune in 9 p.m. Eastern time this Wednesday for some historic action.
Format's pretty sweet, actually, so far. I'm sure it's going to end up, needing some revision, some historic revision,
Well, historically, that usually happens when the pros get at these formats, right? So,
there's just no way Nexus isn't nuts. Although, like I said in a group chat, the aggro decks are pretty good. Embercleave does a lot of work. The fact that Llanowar Elves exists in the format does a lot of work to keep things in check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I've had a lot of fun playing the format. I think it's pretty fun. I don't know. I've enjoyed it. It feels like old extended, so I've enjoyed myself.
I've heard good reviews. I've heard the similar sentiments that Adam has just mentioned. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I've played 0 games of Historic. It's been a very long time since I haven't just been sorting my arena collection by standard legal when I go looking for cards. So I'm going to have a lot to learn.
All right. Well, it'll be a great time. Looking forward to it. And on that note, let's just, before we jump into some announcements, take this opportunity to plug our sponsor, wizardtower.com. Check them out for all your Magic single needs. They have Ikoриa's. Singles are up. Ikoria product. Head on over to wizardtower.com. Show them some support. They gave us a whole bunch of store credit to give away for the DWC Organizational this past weekend. We really appreciate their support, so go show them some love. Moving on.
Yeah, I think there's a promo code actually up until end of May, wasn't there?
Oh, there is. I forgot about that. Our promo code is DWC for life. Now, if you want to use this promo code will allow you to get 10% off Magic singles. This is all capitals, 4 as in the number 4, DWC for life. If you want to get 10% off Magic singles at wizardtower.com. Till the end of May.
I just remembered. That's a sweet deal for our listeners. So make sure you go take advantage of that. That's a good deal because I found out we had the code seconds after basically that I ordered 4 Space Godzilla Death Coronas from them because for obvious reasons, right? I'm going to get that card.
It's a it's
a collector item.
Collector's item, yeah.
I mean, you got it. It's crazy. I had to. But the foils, man, they're so, you know how much they are? Like $50 each. I think they're like 30 US, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. No surprises there. Anyway.
Pretty cool card, yeah.
Yeah. Let's move into some of the announcements from this past week. Kicking things off with something that is new and exciting. WotC announced that they'll be holding a cash tournament on MTG Arena May 30th and 31st. The MTG Arena Open.
Now, I wonder where they got that idea.
So it's a 2-day event. Best of 1 standard on day 1, best of 3 standard on day 2. To qualify for day 2, you have to get 7 wins before you get 3 losses in the best of 1 format. And that'll qualify you for day 2. And then if you go 6-1 on day 2, you win $1,000 US. And if you go 7-0, you win $2,000 US. And there are gem prizes for every win threshold before that. And a big thing about this event is you can re-buy in to day 1 as many times as you'd like. I think the buy-in is 20,000 gold or 4,000 gems, which I think is equivalent to $20 US, if I'm remembering that correctly. But yeah, so you can, if you scrub out, you can play again. You can play as many times as you'd like to try and qualify for day 2. What are your immediate thoughts, guys, on MTG Arena having an event like this?
It's so predatory, man. But at the same time, what are you gonna do? You're just letting people gamble, and I'm cool with that. I think. I'm very happy that an event like this exists, though. Like I understand the predatory aspect of it, but I like the fact that I can just play this event and win some actual cash in client. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I like the precedent that it's setting for, tournaments being organized within and solely on Arena, because the replacements for GPs were through Channel Fireball and they were organizing over Discord and external sources. Our tournaments have been through Melee. And, we've been asking for a while for tournament viewers or tournament like a functionality in Arena itself. So this is the small start of that. And then my other thought is like, if you consider day 1 like a last chance qualifier or some side event on like the Friday of a GP, like the buy-ins for those are like $30 to $40. Obviously, people can spend a lot more money here because it's going to be much quicker. The pace of play is much faster, and you could easily play, 10, 20 of these in a day. But if you're comparing it to like paper side events on a Friday like that, it's kind of similar.
Yeah, like I'm not sure it's any more predatory than side events at a Grand Prix are, to be honest.
No, it's really not. It's just like digital money feels less like money. That's my only thing. But like at the same time, I'm a big fan of personal freedom here.
Yeah.
You make the choice to gamble your, money away on Arena. That's cool.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of complaints on the website about best of 1 day 1, best of 3 day 2, and I understand why they did it. Obviously, with being able to buy in as many times as you like for day 1, you want those games to go by quickly so you can make as much money off it as possible. So it just makes sense that you make best of 1 day 1. But I think they still stick to the belief, they stick to their announcement about the percentage of players that play versus between best of 1 and best of 3, that the majority of Arena players are best of 1 players. So if you're looking at it through that lens, I get that you put both formats in the event because you're trying to appeal to both Arena players, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that what happens when you're playing like an in-person draft on Arena and it gets absolutely train wrecked? Like the person next to you opens some bomb rare and they're like, wow, this would go great in my best of 1 deck.
Probably. Wait, what's the best of? Have they released any info on like what the best performing best of 1 decks are? I mean, I don't know why I'm asking this question. I already know the answer, but a man can dream.
No, they haven't.
It's got to be Gyruda, right? I'm telling you, dude, that deck in best of 1 is nuts.
Yeah, but it gets preyed on by cycling, and no one has interaction for cycling game 1.
Ooh, wait, maybe cycling's the best of 1 deck. I'm going to do some research for next week. I'll report back.
I mean,
someone in our Discord has just been posting like blowout clips of like his opponent made a board with like 4 Gyrudas, and in the process, like milled his entire deck, and then he just like Zenith flares them.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, my immediate thought would be something like cycling might be one of the best of 1 decks. Yeah, that just makes sense to me. But Gyruda might have a pretty solid place in that format as well.
Yeah, it's just a completely different game, right? It's crazy how much, like, obviously sideboarding warps standard games, but yeah, I'm curious, like, how much the difference is because of that change.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have different deck building considerations as well because of the hand smoothing, right? So you can probably play a little less lands that you would normally play. There's certain card choices that will be different because you don't have access to sideboard, so you got to like balance out main deck hate, I guess, for the field you expect to play against. So it is a little interesting, but
yeah, it changes a lot, I think.
That's the
like
event.
not in a bad way. I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm excited for that event. It'll be cool, and I really hope this opens the door for more events like this in the future.
Yeah, I like these, hyper competitive occasional events on Arena. Like I've enjoyed the metagame challenges back when they did those, the ones, with like the super top heavy pack prizing. And this is just kind of an even more top heavy cash prizing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving into a little bit more of a somber announcement. Organized play. WotC announced some of their changes that they're making to the rest of the year for organized play with everything going on with COVID-19. And to the surprise of nobody, they ended up moving a bunch of the Players Tour events to online events, all of which will be played out on MTG Arena, which, of course, I mean, a lot of people are obviously upset about. But I mean, with the state of the world right now, I don't think anyone can reasonably say that they didn't see this coming. Also, they announced that the total prize pool for all of these events that got moved online was cut. And when I say cut, I mean dramatically cut. The total prize pool for these events before was over $3 million, and now it clocks in at just over $1 million. So $2 million has just vanished right back into Hasbro's pockets. And as you might think, there are a lot of players very, very upset about this.
Yeah,
Now,
anybody who made the decision to play in any sort of qualifying event, to spend money to buy into any sort of preliminary tournament for any of the things that prize money was distributed among, with those numbers in mind, now hearing that there's so much less available for whatever they queued for or tried to queue for, it's a pretty bad burn.
Yeah, it's going to feel really, really bad for a lot of people. And I mean, that discontent has been voiced pretty thoroughly online.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I understand that there are reasons why they may have had to cut the prizes. That being said, you've been running PTQs nonstop online almost every day for the past, 2 months since quarantine pretty much started, and have not made any announcement in regards to the changes to these events that all of these players have been putting all this money and time into qualifying for until now. So I can't really wrap my head around how anyone in a decision-making place when it comes to this would think it'd be okay to just basically give the middle finger to all of these players who have been putting all this time and money into qualifying for an event that they thought had these higher prize pools, right? It just seems like a huge kick in the gut.
Yeah, announcing prize pools seems like one of those things that you got to double and triple check, because once you announce it, you're committed.
Exactly.
But I guess not.
I don't think anyone would have an issue if after these events took place, if they had just stuck with the original prize pool, but said, you know what, going forward for the rest of the year and for the 2021 season, all of our events are going to have a significantly lower prize pool because of the whole situation. I don't think anyone could actually be reasonably upset about that. That just makes sense. I'm pretty sure everyone would just expect that to happen. But the fact that you already announced these events, have been running these events nonstop for PTQs, people trying to qualify for them, only to just pull the rug out from under all these players when it comes to what they're playing for. Like, this is very understandable that a lot of people are incredibly upset.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of players, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, at the start, there were a whole bunch of players who were ticked that the events were being held on MTG Arena because, well, they're not Arena players. They play on Moto. That's how they qualified, etc. And, I joked in a group chat. I'm like, I mean, WotC is just going to go back on what they said and just give everybody God accounts. You watch it. And I think 7 hours after I said that, they announced on Twitter that everybody playing in these MTG Arena Players Tour events will be given God accounts. But just for those events, not going forward, they won't be doing that. So they quickly went back on that, which they tend to do. As much shit as people give WotC, when they announce something, if the public outcry is largely negative, they generally are willing to make changes relatively quickly, right?
Yeah, they're usually pretty good about it, which of course is something we should celebrate. I think that's a really good thing to give the community, a say in what happens to their game.
Yeah, so they will be giving players God accounts for these events, which I think is great. One positive thing, I think, from the changes they announced was how they actually structured the prizes for these new Players Tour events. The prize distribution is a lot more flat. Last place still makes money, and just overall the prizes are a lot more flat. And I think this is something that would be great for most organized play tournaments.
Yeah, in like a lot of tournaments, you see first place being sometimes double whatever second place wins. But here, first place is 8,000, second place is 7,000, third place is 6,000. There's these minor differences, to still encourage competition during those top 8 matches. But it's recognizing that in a game with this much variance, like making top 8 versus making first or second is not really a significant difference.
Mm-hmm. I do also like that there's a difference between like 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th, 3rd and 4th. And that'll obviously be based on how well you do in the Swiss. So like if you go 12-0 in the Swiss and then lose in top 8, you're still going to make $500 more than the person who went, 10-2, right? So you're getting
cool.
some kind of benefit for how well you did in Swiss, even if you don't win the entire event. So I do like that change as well, the minor prize differences. Whereas, before 3rd and 4th generally made the same amount, 5th through 8th always made the same amount. So there's these minor breakups in it to benefit those players who had a very good record in the Swiss. I think that's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the more competition there is in competitive Magic events, the better. Like if your last round is playing for standing, like go for it, play.
Exactly, yeah.
And it just encourages more competitive play, right? And that's what we want to see.
Exactly. And with this announcement, we briefly mentioned it earlier. They announced that the Mythic Invitational is going to be historic constructed. So we'll get to see historic at the highest level for the first time ever.
I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure I played a bunch of meme decks in historic on stream. So what do you mean highest level? I take umbrage with this statement.
Okay.
I do believe, sir, that I went 0-10 with that dumb, I can't
Treasure
remember.
Hunt?
Treasure Hunt, yeah. Oh, it was miserable.
All right,
but you did really well with High Alert. Can you imagine if High Alert wins this?
I'll lose my damn mind.
All right, let me rephrase. For the first time ever, the historic format will be up on a Players Tour level event.
There you go. Thank you.
So that's pretty exciting. I think there will be a lot more players playing the format, taking interest in the format, and really I've had a lot of fun playing historic. We joked about it. I mean, months and months ago on the show about how, the format's kind of a meme. Do people really even care? But then we started playing a little bit, and it's actually pretty fun. I do like it. So I'm excited to see it at a higher level for this event.
I'm also excited to see the different historic anthologies come out and change the format. I think it's actually kind of cool, and it's easy for them because it's an arena format to adjust when they make horrendous mistakes. So that's also a benefit. So there's a lot of plus side to historic being a quote unquote real format. I think it should be pretty enjoyable. I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Just how it's managed is different than any other constructed format in Magic. So it is really exciting to get to see it at the Mythic Invitational level.
Yeah, that's actually like a unique, as Stelly mentioned, like no other format does this. There has been discussion, sort of on the fringes of various formats, usually when bans are in consideration, about things that could be added to the format or types of cards that could be printed to solve the issue rather than removing cards. But it's never really been an option, other than maybe wait for a new standard set. But yeah, Historic's in this unique place where like if something is problematic, they can just add cards to the format.
Yeah. Modern had a similar thing with Modern Horizons last year, but that's still different. Like
Did that fix any problems?
No, that just caused a whole heap of new problems. But historic, they're just adding, 20 new cards every couple months, which is a lot more frequent than what happened with Modern Horizons. So yeah, it's still quite different. I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to play more historic. It's a format I've really grown to enjoy.
What cards are you most excited to cast in historic, besides the obvious recent addition of Ulamog?
That was my immediate go-to. I think aside from Ulamog, from the new anthology set, the card I'm most excited for is Unburial Rites. That card has a special place in my heart, so I will definitely be casting lots of those.
That was my answer. You beat me to it. I absolutely adore that card. I'm so excited it's in the format, and I think it's going to be very good in the format. I'm really excited.
Oh, absolutely.
I haven't actually looked at the third anthology yet. Let me do a bit of Googling here.
There's some sweet ones in there. Phyrexian Obliterator, that card is a nice one.
Yeah, that's a classic. There's some really cool ones. Yeah, it's really exciting. I think it's a pretty exciting format, so it should be interesting. I wish that Ojutai's Command was legal because Dragon Master's Outcast was legal, and that's an old throwback from Standard that I really enjoyed.
That's an awesome combo, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Dragon Master Outcast is legal is in it, but I don't think Ojutai's Command is yet. But we can dream.
Yeah,
I'm not super familiar with most of these cards except Ulamog. I might just Teferi 5 some people, and then if I get Ulamog, it's just going to be a race to exile lands. That's great magic.
Oh yeah. No, the Teferi 5 decks are definitely good in the format. You can build lots of cool control decks. There's lots of cool ways. I played quite a bit of it, and I think Stelly's even going to play some on stream potentially.
Yeah, I'm planning on streaming on Sunday, so we'll be playing historic the entire stream. It should be fun. I've been working on a couple brews already over the past couple days.
Oh hell yeah!
Might brew some up on stream and give her a go.
What have you been brewing with? I'm curious.
So I've got a couple different Mardu Knights builds. I've been looking at Luris builds or History Benalia builds. I've been looking at Lucky Clover builds with Smitten Swordmaster. I've been just trying out a bunch of different things to see what works because we have all these great Knight cards from Throne of Eldraine, and there was a bunch of good Knight cards from Dominaria that never got to see any play together. So.
That sounds awesome.
There has to be something there. And History of Benalia is just messed up cards. So,
oh yeah, that card's something else.
Yeah, excited to be casting that one again, for sure. And then I have an Abzan Reanimator deck quickly thrown together as well that I played a couple games with the other day with Unburial Rites, of course. And that deck was pretty sweet. So, going to continue working on that one. One of the best decks in the format just has to be 4 of every 1 and 2 mana dork in the format. Nissa Who Shakes the World, Leyline of Abundance, and Ulamog, right? That deck's probably nuts.
It's got to be up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll throw something like that together too and see how it plays. But
there's probably even a way to get Tutor out the Ulamog, right? Or to get to it. The green, what's it called? What was the green card that lets you search your library for a creature?
There's that enchantment.
Mythos of Brokos kind of does it.
No,
is it?
I just don't know if it's.
Am I thinking of Growing Rights of Itlamok? What's that card do? Am I thinking?
No, that's the enchantment that gets a creature, but that actually might be really good in that deck because it could probably find Ulamog.
Yeah, that's probably
what's at the top for a creature, then it turns into a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Is Once Upon a Time legal?
No, it's banned. Cards too good with Field of the Dead is in the format, so you can't really have both those cards exist at the same time. Also, Llanowar Elves, Gilded Goose, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's true.
That card's too good for Modern. It can't be allowed to see play in Historic.
The Field of the Dead decks are super fun in Historic. They're good, but they don't seem oppressive. A lot of it is that Maelstrom Pulse is a legal card, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. And Gruul Aggro is one of the best decks in the format, which plays 4 Questing Beast and a bunch of Ember Cleaves. And those 2 cards are very good at killing Field of the Dead decks, for sure.
Oh yeah, they smash it.
Yeah, and also that they added what's the card's name? Goblin Ruin Blaster, I think. It's a haste goblin that for kicker 1 red, you can destroy a land. That card sees a lot of sideboard play in the aggressive decks for fighting against field decks. So there are definitely a lot of ways to fight that strategy.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, well, that's all the announcements we have for this week's episode. Let's move into a little bit of talk about the events that happened this past weekend. Not only was there the DWC Organizational, but there was also the biggest online Magic event, or perhaps just Magic event in general, ever, with Red Bull Untapped taking place on MTG Melee. The whole event was won by Blue-White Control, and we got a lot of really good data from the event, as MTG Melee has fantastic metrics for showing win percentages, game one win percentages, post-board win percentages. And actually, we didn't say anything about this at the start of the show, but we just want to give a huge thanks to the MTG Melee staff who helped us out with the event. They're always super helpful whenever there's any problems and solving issues for us very quickly. So big shout out to them. Thank you for everything you've done on the platform and helping us out running these events. Let's jump into a little bit of talk about Red Bull Untapped first.
Yeah, so as you were mentioning, we have stats from an event, finally. Like Adam made the joke earlier that WotC doesn't like to release data, but Melee is releasing basically all of it. They give overall win percentage of decks. They tell you how many copies of the deck was brought. They even give you pre-board win percentage versus post-board win percentage, so you should make some comparisons. So we have some of those interesting stats. So sort of the meaningful numbers, the ones that are more, I guess, in line with the format, obviously come from Red Bull Untapped, just by the volume of data collected. It's going to be closer to the actual numbers. And kind of alarmingly, in Red Bull Untapped, Jeskai, Yori, and Luca decks had a 61% win rate. And this is a number which includes mirror matchups. So that means that, since it's north of 50%, if you take out the mirror matches, it's going to be even higher. So I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but maybe like 62, 63% against the rest of the field, maybe even more, which is really high for a standard deck.
Yeah. That level, when it comes to win percentage, is almost unheard of in standard. Like, that does not happen often. For specifically...
in any format, really.
Yeah, like for specifically the reason you said, like when a deck becomes such a large part of the metagame, its overall win rate tends to decline a bit because of all the mirror matches that happen. Because every time the deck gets paired against itself, its win rate goes up, but it's like it has another loss against it as well. So
so actually, I can. I was curious about how this would work, and there's actually some math on my whiteboard beside me at the moment. If your win rate is 50% or above, taking away mirror matches will increase the overall win rate. And if your win rate is 50% or below and you stop considering mirror matches, then it will make it go down. So including mirror matchups in your win percentages drags everything towards 50%, which makes sense because if you only played mirror matchups, you'd have a 50% win rate. Mm-hmm. But as you were mentioning, like when something is the best deck and takes over the meta, people aren't playing it if it has a low win rate. So generally, those good decks, when you don't consider mirror matchups, the win rate is even higher.
So taking a quick look at this top 8, it was taken down by Blue-White Control, featuring Yorion as a companion. It beat Jeskai Luca in the finals. There were 2 copies of Temur Reclamation, 1 copy of Jun's Sacrifice, 1 copy of Obosh Mono Red Aggro, a second copy of Jeskai Luca, and then a really spicy one in 8th place, which was Omori Gruul Monsters, which was a bit of a new deck. We actually played it on the DWC Versus this past week. Cam.
Yeah, and I got Cam with it, or I gave it to Cam playing green-white, though, on that deck, let me tell you.
Yeah, the green-white adventure matchup is not very good for the Gruul and Omori, which I don't think they played against much in Red Bull Untapped.
I was going to say the known meta matchup.
But, I played it. It's attempting to compete with the other big mana decks of the format by cheating on mana in its own way through discount effects such as Marauding Raptor and Umori, and it can have some insane turns. It can have like 8 mana turn 6s. It can play a lot of creatures for 1 or 2 that normally cost 3 or 4. It was my first time playing it on Versus, so there was definitely some turns I played wrong. I locked myself out of a couple turns by playing 2 Marauding Raptors. So be aware of that if you pilot the deck. But yeah, it just has a very aggressive, fast curve, and if you're looking to smash people before they can do their powerful thing, it's a nice option.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I mentioned this deck in the top 8 as well, but Jund Sacrifice is not a strategy we've seen put up a result in a very long time. And this build of the deck, I mean, looks pretty stock from what we saw last standard format. Notably, there's no copies of Corvold. There's no copies of Corvold in this deck. Instead, there's 3 copies of Bolus's Citadel. But everything else is the same. So really cool to see a deck like this make such a deep run in such a huge event, because with how the event was structured, I think you had to finish 6-1 or better on day 1 to make day 2. Maybe a couple 6-2 players made it in. But for day 2, it was single elimination. So you had to win out. 1 loss and you were dead. So all of these decks who made top 8 just went undefeated all the way through day 2, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's neat. I guess you kind of have to do that for a tournament of that size, right? Otherwise, you're just keeping track of so many players for so long.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a great way to do it.
There's the stats from Red Bull Untapped, which you can go check out on the Melee page. They're all the way at the bottom. And at the same place on the page for our organizational for Ikoria, there's also stats at the bottom. And we had some similar stats. I think the maybe most meaningful win percentage is that we had 20 players of Jessica, Yorian, Luca, and they had a 67% win rate in our tournament. So, matching what we've seen in larger events. So just an incredibly strong deck if you're looking to win. Some of the other decks that did well, Boros Cycling did quite well in our event. Mono Red Obosh did well. Team of Rec winning it also had like a 60% win rate. And the Obosh Sacrifice lists did well too. And you can go check out all these stats. But what I actually found interesting, some comparisons of this pre-board and post-board win rate. The decks that in the organizational increased their win percentage post-board were Jeskai Luka Yorian, Obosh Rakdos Sacrifice, and Mardu Knights. I went looking through some of their sideboards trying to understand maybe why this was happening. And I mean, if their win percentage is increasing post-board, then that means that something else is decreasing that they're playing against. And so some preliminary, or I guess some additional stats, which I found interesting. Luris versions of Rakdos Sacrifice had a 70% game 1 win rate, which dropped to 52 post-board. That's a huge cut. And the Jeskai Winota lists had a 71% win rate game 1, and it dropped to 46 post-board.
Yeah,
that is a massive decline from 71 to 46. Also, this kind of answers some questions I had about the best of 1 standard decks. I mean, maybe Jeskai Winota is one of the best things to take in a best of 1.
Yeah,
it could be.
To see that huge drop off in Winota, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, like these are the sort of okay. So it didn't surprise me until I did a bit more digging. So, by the way, the increases on the decks that I mentioned were like 4 or 5%. But Rakdos, Luris, and Jeskai Winota, they both dropped significantly. And so I was trying to think, like, if both of those got hit so hard, what card do people have floating around that would hurt each of those? And I assumed it was Grafdigger's Cage. People have been saying it's a 3 of sideboard card in the format, shuts down Luca strategies, shuts down Winota strategies, stops Luris from casting things from the graveyard, and these decks like only have a couple slots in their sideboard dedicated to destroying artifacts. And so that was just my assumption. So I went looking into the deck lists of the ones that increased their win rate post-board, and there was no cages in any of the decks I looked at. They weren't in the Luka Yorian deck. They weren't in the Obosh deck. I mean, they weren't in the Mardu Knights deck, which was a Luris deck, so that's understandable, and Cage shuts down Luka Yorian itself. But the fact that Rakdos Obosh increased its win rate post-board and didn't have cages was really interesting to me. Like the Obosh lists I looked at and the Mardu Knights, they were just playing more removal and hand disruption.
That is really interesting, actually.
So I'm not sure what cards it is. Maybe, like, I hesitate to say that Grafdigger's Cage is a trap because it seems so good. And obviously this is a small tournament, so you can't put too much stock into these numbers. But this definitely sort of points the way towards possible testing avenues that, like, maybe Grafdigger's Cage isn't how you need to be attacking these decks. Maybe it slows down your plan too much. I don't know. But like Rakdos, Luris, and Winota were both getting slaughtered post-board, and the decks that seemed to be doing it weren't using Cage.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's actually, it's so nice having these stats, if only because it can open up, considerations in testing, right? You can test out sideboard strategies, which is something we've talked about on the show that we don't think people do enough, right? Which is taking sort of unintuitive lines around sideboarding and playing post-board games, because you also have to take into consideration, like, are they probably playing around a Grafdigger's Cage post-board? How does it affect their decisions? But maybe you don't even have it, so you generate some sort of virtual advantage that way.
Yeah, and I mean, we did a whole podcast episode on this topic about reactive versus proactive sideboard strategies, and it could just be that in this kind of hyper-powered linear standard, something like Grafdigger's Cage is too reactive and too slow, whereas something like Duress or some of the Obosh lists had Drill Bit. It's a bit more proactive, and so therefore that's what these decks are moving towards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it's so nice having all this information, for going forward in standard, for at least thinking about how to even attack these really popular decks that have like absurd win percentages. I mean, I'm not sure that Jeskai Yorion, you can really do a whole lot to beat that deck, but there must be ways going forward that people just aren't getting around to testing yet. I have faith that deck is beatable, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if discard isn't just the answer, because like, for example, we cast a lot of Yorion games during the organizational, and when it played against aggro, the agent plan wasn't what was impressive. The impressive part, surprisingly, was that they cast Omen of the Sun, put blockers in the way, gained life, was really hard for the aggro decks to deal with. So like, if you imagine a scenario where an aggro deck, maybe plays some 1-drops and then a cage, okay, they don't get Yorion, but they still get Omen to the Sun. But if you instead consider that game where they play some 1-drops, duress the Omen of the Sun, and then kill their opponent before Luca matters, like, those are very different games.
Yeah, it's talking about Jeskai Luca specifically and how to fight it. It's such an interesting discussion because we actually saw players throughout our event try and attack it in multiple different ways. Like, we saw a lot of players trying to attack it in the way of like killing all their tokens. We saw players bringing in Cry of the Carnariums, or just ways to get the tokens out of the way. And those plans generally fell all flat on their face, right? Like, none of those strategies worked out post board. There was always like an 0-4 token sitting around that can still get turned into a knight or a dream trawler even, and it just didn't seem like a great strategy for fighting them. And I'm hesitant to say that discard spells are even good versus the Yorion deck, because I mean, one of their best cards in Yorion, you can't Thoughtseize out of their hand or anything, and they have so many like small incidental ways of recouping the card advantage through blinking Omen of the Sun with Yorion, or blinking a Narset and resetting it. Like, I just not very excited about a post-board duress or drill bit strategy versus them. Like, I understand that you could nail a key piece and maybe just throw them on their back foot just enough that you're a really good aggressive start can get them. But
yeah, I mean, and in all fairness, like, when I went looking at these sideboards, I was just sort of looking for some similarities between all of them, and they all seem to have discard. I don't actually know if these players were bringing in the discard in this matchup. Maybe they weren't. Maybe that was for some other decks. Maybe their plan against Luca was something entirely different. All I know is that Cage wasn't there, so I just speculated on the first commonality I saw. But you'd have to ask maybe some of these pilots what they did. Yeah, you could be right. It could be that they have those cards in their sideboard, but not for Luca.
Yeah. The one post-board strategy that we did see succeed, funny enough, was in the finals, Team Rec versus Jeskai Luca. Our Jeskai Luca player, Josh, friend of the show, who went undefeated all the way through the event, did not lose a single match until the finals. He lost to Team Rec, and the way games 2 and 3 played out were really interesting. In game 2, both players had a ton of counter magic and just a bunch of cards that was cycled, essentially, like Growth Spiral. And I don't think the Team Rec player did anything except scry and cast growth cycles that game, and just died to Josh creating a 1/1 token with Castle Ardenvale over and over that game. So it was very weird. They just kind of played draw go back and forth. But game 3, both players played a similar draw go game, but the Team Rec player had a little more action, and Josh never really had a good opportunity to try and slide a Teferi Time Raveler into play, which obviously incredibly good against Team Reclamation. But as that third game went on, you could just tell how bad of a situation the Jeskai Luka player was getting by just trying to play draw go with Team Rec, because although the second game didn't quite play out that way, it really felt like trying to play draw go with Reclamation was a really poor strategy to try and kill them out of Jeskai Luka. And it really showed how powerful all of the counter spells out of the sideboard were for Team Rec, as long as they were able to keep Teferi Time Raveler off the board.
Yeah, like once Teferi wasn't there, Team Rec has some more flexible counter magic in that they can play Thassa's Intervention. The big player that we saw actually end games was Shark Typhoon, on both sides of the table. But of course, Team Herb only being a 60-card deck, it's going to find its Shark Typhoons a bit more often than the 80-card Yorion deck does. And yeah, just like having that extra mana that it can use at instant speed, which is really when you need it for draw go, sort of on its opponent's turn. Whereas Fires doesn't have access to that. It stops you from like playing a control plan because you can't cast spells on your opponent's turns. Really just let the Reclamation deck leverage its resources into a control game much easier than it seemed the Yorion decks could. Even though the Yorion decks had access to things like Dovin's vetoes, it kind of seemed like the matchup started to be break or bust on how many Dovin's vetoes the Jeskai deck could find, because without that card, Teamer could just sort of, play a better control plan.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Shark Tornado is one of the cards I think that completely actually is warped standard in a lot of ways, in that the decks that get to play Teferi also get to protect themselves and kill opposing Teferis with it. So that card in the mirrors looked like it mattered so much. And I don't just mean mirrors, I mean in the sort of any draw go mirror, right? Like both out of Wilderness Reclamation, that card's insane, and in the Yorion decks, that card's insane. That card has been just absolutely warping in standard. It's so powerful because of its ability to answer, things like Narset on their turn or Teferi.
Exactly. And yeah, the strategy of relying on your Shark Typhoons to put pressure or stunt aggression while just sitting on a whole bunch of counter magic seemed like a very good way to approach the Luka matchup.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Wilderness Rec deck's just more consistently going to be able to access them, and it just seemed like they consistently hit their game plan against the Luka decks. It actually seemed like the Wilderness Rec deck has an okay Yorion matchup, just playing a really heavy control game. So if you're looking for something to beat it, but that deck's obviously very difficult to play, but if you're looking for something to beat it, I think you can try and lower those absurd win percentages out of Luka Yorion by playing something like Wilderness Rec. I agree. I think it looked quite strong against it.
Yeah, the only problem is when you come with the amount of counter spells you need to be able to fight on that access versus Jeskai Luka, you're giving up a lot of percentage points against the rest of the format. The rest of the format will really, really punish you. But I mean, if you're expecting to just battle against a lot of Jeskai Luka, it seems like a build like the one that took down our event was a pretty good way to approach the metagame.
Yeah, no doubt, definitely. I mean, there's different ways to approach the metagame too. I mean, we sort of tried some different ways at the DWC Versus, brewing up some decks this weekend too, or this week, sorry.
Yeah, less of a successful brewing week for me. The last 2 weeks, I brought some pretty sweet ones. This one, I took a deck out of our submissions chat and then took the Gruul Umori deck that top-aided Red Bull. But Adam did some successful brewing.
Yeah, I played a green-white adventure deck at the Versus series that I've been actually still playing on ladder, and I'm pretty happy with. I've had some pretty good. I changed up some cards. I post an updated list in Discord tonight or tomorrow. I've had some success with it, actually, surprisingly. It doesn't seem like it should be that good, but like I beat Wilderness Rec somehow, which I thought I should never win, but you can get lucky in the Versus. And then I absolutely smashed that green-red deck you played that top-aided the Red Bull event.
Yeah, I mean, I had, big creatures where big here is, a 6/6 with no trample or something smaller with trample. And you just made a bunch of 1/1s to check my things without trample. And anything else I had that was, quote unquote big, you put beanstalks in front of. Those things are actually big.
Oh yeah, Beanstalk Giant's huge. And the deck also features Giant Killer, so you get the Jack and the Beanstalk flavor win. But yeah, just green-white adventures with the whole point of the deck was to be able to try and pop off with Vivian, Monsters Advocate. I think a card criminally underplayed in Standard, and at least we got to see it shine a bit. And that card's been so good for me. There's some pretty interesting decisions you can play with Knight of Autumn to tutor to destroy something out of Luke of Fires. The deck has a lot of game to it, so I'm pretty happy with how it's been playing out. I don't think things are in some horrible place in Standard, even despite the Luca numbers that you see. I think that there's still room for innovation in play.
You know what is a horrible place in Standard? I got convinced to spend another morning, many hours, trying to make the Ozolith work. Someone in Discord requested it. I gave it my second best effort. Not my second best effort. I gave it my best effort a second time. I just still can't make that card. I was trying so many different things. Like, here's how insanely deep I went on trying to get the Ozolith to work. I realized that if you had two planeswalkers that were both also creatures, then you could use Ozolith to move the loyalty counters. And I was trying to figure out how I could make this do like a good ultimate in Standard before realizing how off base I was.
Just literally ignoring the advice we gave last week on the podcast.
I was so committed. I just like wanted to show up with like a functioning Ozolith deck, and I couldn't do it. There's just too many costs to that card. The fact that it's legendary, the fact that multiples do nothing, the fact that like there's just so much you need around it that makes most of your draws bad. I gave it an honest effort.
I mean, it's just an EDH card, but we had to try, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know what's worse than that. I got baited into playing a Boros Feather deck at Versus this past week by a friend of ours from the Discord. And my God, if you have any thought in your head about playing Boros Feather in this metagame, just don't. Save yourself the trouble. That deck is so bad. I honestly, like, it's worth going back and watching the VODs to see how horrible that deck was, because I think I got to kind of play Magic one game out of the matches I played with it.
There was a game I remember where you had like 3 lands in hand, or 2 lands in hand maybe, and then just 5 pump spells and no creatures and died. It was it was awesome.
There's like multiple hands I had to mulligan where I had like only one color and all my other cards were the other color.
To be fair, in the defense of that deck, like, I'm not trying to say it's that good or anything, but in the defense of that deck, you also got just like outrageously lucky on stream.
Outrageously unlucky?
Yeah, sorry, did I say lucky? I meant unlucky.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
you
what are you
mulled
talking
every
about?
single game. I don't think you kept 7. Like,
I accidentally kept 7 one time when I meant to hit mulligan. And lost
what was it, like
quickly.
7 lands?
It was like 4 mountains and 3 white cards, and I accidentally hit keep instead of mull.
I've been there, dude. I misclick on Magic. See, this is why I miss paper Magic, actually, with quarantine, is I can't misclick in paper.
You had an event where you misclicked. You were just keeping awful hands and then wondering why. You were just really dejected after, I think one round you got particularly unlucky. And then afterwards, you're like, yeah, the rest of the day, I just was keeping 7 without thinking. Like,
oh yeah, that's just because I checked out. Like, I left the game. I AFK'd. Yeah, that event. That was. I can still AFK mentally events in paper. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I checked. I remember that event very well because I've never done anything like that in any other event. I just stopped caring. I just didn't. I was so weird. I didn't want to play Magic anymore. I should have just dropped, but I just sat there like, well, maybe I'll win by like random chance, and then I just inted. Like, I just intentionally misplayed and kept every hand possible because I was so mad that I was just like, it was self-flagellation. It was insane. I was not in a good mental state that tournament, let me tell you. I was not in a good mindset on that tournament. Holy shit.
Yeah, Adam, are you in a healthy mindset to receive some information that could disturb you?
Yeah,
you should have mulled.
Oh yeah, I'm aware. I should have mulled that whole tournament. Yeah, as in like just giving them lit the money on fire and stayed home. But now with arena tournaments, I can just do that every time.
Yeah, exactly.
You can buy in as many times as you want.
I know. That's why I said it's predatory, because like I'm gonna get in that mindset, but then I'm just gonna keep rebuying in and just losing because I'm just frustrated. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know why I do that in some games. I just get mad at the game and then I just intentionally lose. Like, I did it in TFT the other day. I was like, oh, I can't find the champ I need. I guess I'll just roll away all my gold, just fuming. Like, and just lose the game for no reason. Like, I don't know why.
It's fun to just burn money from home, and it's like super easy. So like, if anyone wants to do it, just make sure you have like your oven fan on.
All right. Done talking about my really bad habits on occasion. It's like once in a blue moon, though. It's like a notable story. So I don't feel bad about like sharing those details because it's like one tournament in my Magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had days where I've played bad over the day, but I've never had a day where I've like intentionally lost. You know what I mean? I'm like, I could play this 2-drop, but I'll just wait and take some damage. Like that's the mind state I was in. Like I wanted to lose. I was like, I'm here to give people free W's to make their day feel better because mine can't possibly get any worse and it doesn't matter anymore. That's where I was at. That's how unlucky my round 1 went. You have no idea. It was, yeah.
I believe you.
Put me in a state.
On a positive note, though, speaking of sweet brews and maybe another lucky find, we got another cookout of the week.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's do it.
So Adam went to a butcher near, I think it's slightly out of Ottawa, and stocked up on a bunch of different stuff. In particular, he got a bunch of spicy chorizo sausages. And he was asking me, like, what should he do with these? Because, you know, having a lot of spicy chorizo sausage, while it's good, there's room there for innovation. It's one of these ingredients that asks to be broken, you know?
Okay.
And so my thought was, since it's kind of like you can get chorizo at like burrito places, it's like kind of North American Mexican food meat. Maybe it's also in Mexico. I'm ignorant. I don't know. But my thought was, what if you put it in a hot dog bun because it's already a sausage, but then you put taco toppings on it and made a taco dog? So that's what we did.
Let me tell you, Stelly, this thing was insane. I'll make it for you sometime. So what I did was I cut up the chorizo so I could better fit on a nice bun. I bought like the nice Italiano buns or whatever, you know.
All right.
Cut it up, and then I fried the chorizo, and then I put the taco seasoning in the oil and fat that it left behind.
Yeah.
And then fried the buns for the hot dog on that oil, like fry grilled them.
Okay.
Yeah, and then put all the taco seasoning on a hot dog. It was
that
on a
sounds
chorizo dog.
Yeah, you just put it on a hot dog bun. You put lettuce, salsa, tomato, some cheese, sour cream. It was great.
Yeah, it was so good, man. And then I made a bunch of leftover taco salad because I had all this extra lettuce and stuff.
Nice.
It's been a good day around here, you know?
All right. On that note, let's wrap the show up this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. Be sure to remember the next DWC Take Our Money event is on May 31st at noon Eastern Time. $100 for first place. Winner take all. The three of us will be battling. So come join the event. It's going to be a great time. And be sure to tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for DWC Versus. This week, we're going to be playing some historic. It's going to be a good time. And also, if you didn't know, we have a YouTube channel. And we are starting up to upload coverage from our past events, as well as clips from our Versus series. So if you want to check that stuff out, head on over to YouTube, search the Disorganized Wizards Club, and we will have our top 8 coverage from the organizational up, I believe, within the next couple of days. So definitely check that out if you want to catch up on our event. And
yeah, we're pro YouTubers now. So when you go watch those videos, remember to like and subscribe, comment down below what your favorite part was. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell to join the Disorganized Wizard Club notification squad.
God damn it.
You get to do the YouTube plug every episode now. You're locked in.
Dude, he's so good at it. He's unbelievable. Every time he does it, it's amazing.
All right. On that note, thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Later.
See ya.